morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. It's a rainy day in Lagos, at least in the part of it that we're in, that is Lagos, southwest of the country, where we are broadcasting from. We also, as you know, from time to time broadcast from other parts of the country, especially from, Abuja. But here we are. It's a rainy day in Lagos. Hope it doesn't lead to floods. And what should be our subject of conversation this morning? Okay, let's look at labor and the negotiations that are ongoing regarding a living wage, a minimum living wage. Now, as you know, Labour has said that 250,000 naira seems to it to be a feasible, figure for the lowest paid worker in Nigeria in terms of talking about a minimum living wage. Now, the federal government and the organized private sector proposes 62,000 as the figure. Now, that is, as you well know, those are the official figures that we have out there. But we also can add that some governors have actually piped up and said that even the 60,000, it's not going to be convenient to. So we are at that point. But the tripartite committee submitted to the president on Monday through the secretary to the government of the federation the two proposals. That's the 250,000, which is the presidency's or the federal government's position, and the 62,000, which, no, I beg your pardon, no, I got it all wrong. 250,000 is coming from Labour, and government is saying we're upping it from 60,000 to 60,000 to 62,000. Seven days, and Labour might be getting restive. And one can say that in the interim, NLC and TUC have stated that they do not see themselves going below 250,000 naira. Either I call it a minimum wage or a living wage, as they have called it. So it's a matter of, where do you think we're going from here? We'll be joined by our guest. Our guest this morning is Dr. Kayode Isuola, Research Associate Professor of Political Behavior at the Institute of Africa and Diaspora Studies of the University of Lagos. But we're looking at it among ourselves now, waiting for Kayode Isuola to join us. It seems to be such a wide, there seems to be such a wide berth. The federal government has upped to 62,000. Labour says 250,000 or nothing. Well, actually, they didn't say or nothing. I just added that. So take that out. That was my own bit. They haven't said or nothing. But I don't know what you think about the matter. Everybody seems to be thinking that if we're going to be logical about this, there's absolutely no way that the country can afford a minimum wage of 250,000. The president, as you recall, had asked the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy to submit the implications, to submit the implications of going up with the minimum wage. That has been done, and it was after that that we heard word that the federal government was ready to move to 62,000 from 60,000. And as I said, just to put it in context, TUC, NLC say that they are looking, steadfastly at 250,000. Okay, Kamal has called in. Good morning to you, Kamal. Kamal has called in from Abuja. Good morning to you. I think I can hear some sound. Kamal is in Abuja. He's called in. I wonder if you can hear us. So if you can, we have connected you, Kamal. We're talking about the minimum wage and what's next. Labor, the country is waiting on the president. I just hope it's not going to be like that. That is inclement weather causing a disruption in the quality of the lines. But so sorry about that, Kamal. As I was just saying, wondering what you are thinking about the matter. What way are we going to go? That there's no way, I don't think, dare I say it, but much as it is desired, can the country afford 250,000 that NLC and TUC, insist on not looking beneath? They don't want to look beneath that figure. And that's a far cry from the federal government's 62,000, which itself was upped from 60,000 that they started out with. Well, it's a tough one, and we're waiting on the president for us to know where exactly the president has to pronounce on this matter, meaning really that the federal government has to come up with a proposal that is going to be to the satisfaction of the NLC and the TUC. In the private sector as well, you know, of course, that they have also been saying that, look, how is this going to work for us if you say there's a minimum wage of 62,000, but labor looking out for its workers, for the workers, Nigerian workers, and feeling, and nobody is arguing with that fact, that things are hard and labor needs, the Nigerian worker needs to be able to exist in this environment. And it is felt that with the current situation, it's almost impossible for anybody to exist in a situation like this. So that's one way of putting it. So how were they existing before? Not that we're sort of, wanting to emphasize that. But there is the point, Labour's point is that how can anybody really be said to be doing well? We're just coming out of June 12 celebrations, and this theme came up when some people called in and were talking about the benefits of a sustained democracy for 25 years. There are those who had said that, shouldn't there be something in it for the ordinary man? Should it be that all the benefits of a stream, an unbroken stream of democracy, unbroken stream, should it just be in the areas that we have spoken about, that we've made progress in those areas? How about the ordinary man? How about the regular folk? Well, you could say it's a compelling argument depending on who is commenting on the matter, but the facts are the facts. As they say, it is what it is. Can Nigeria afford to pay 250,000 a minimum wage? And of course, this is going to have a knock-on effect. If the absolute least, if the absolute minimum that can be paid is that is paid is 250,000, it stands to reason that everything else is going to also go up. So really, one doesn't know how this is going to be. So, as we've been looking at this whole matter, Kayode Esuola, Research Associate Professor of Political Behavior at the Institute of Africa and Diaspora Studies, is able to join us now. Good morning to you, Kayode.
Yuri, good morning.
Thank you very much. I hope it was indeed. I hope it's not the weather or anything, because we are experiencing a bit of inclement weather here.
Yeah, heavy rain everywhere.
Okay, and it's. I just hope it doesn't affect too badly the quality of the calls But we're happy that we have you, and we've been looking among ourselves. That is just me and the viewers. What is going to happen now? It's now 60,000. Labour has said 250,000, please, between Labour and TUC. Labour and TUC are insisting on 250,000, please. That's what they're saying to the federal government. Kade, can you hear me? Because you were...
Yeah.
Okay. So, and the proposals of both sides have been submitted to the president. So Labour is now waiting on the president. I guess they're getting restive now that we've had 7 days that have passed. What do you think, Kade? What do you think? Because it seems to be such a wide disparity between 62,000 and 250,000.
Thank you. It's all about interest and how to balance them. On the part of the government, considerations are on the overall economy. If this amount is paid, what will the implications be for inflation, for foreign, reserve, for the entire economy? That is the dominant interest of the government. On the part of Labour, what is at stake in terms of interest is wage that will enable an average Nigerian worker live. And a simple analogy in that respect is that any wage that cannot surpass a bag of rice. Rice is the staple food, the most common food anybody can have in this part of the world. And any wage at all that cannot surpass that bag of rice is in a way reducing the life of an average worker to that which is below a bag of rice. That wage cannot be considered living. Now, if we look at what obtains in the Nigerian economy today, there is nothing abnormal in the labor's demand and insistence on 250,000 naira. Because an average family must feed, must pay house rent, even if it is just one room apartment, must cater for medical expenses in a country where such is not done pro bono, must also pay school fees and send children to places where they are socially expected to be. There is no way anybody can fault Labour's insistence on 250,000 naira if we take all these factors into consideration.
Indeed. Can I come back to you, Kayode, while I take a call? Mr. George has just called in. Good morning, Mr. George. Yes, we can hear you barely. There seems to be... Are you near a machine of some sort?
No.
Oh, okay. Please continue. Maybe we'll be able to make it out.
All right. So, I agree with the question. So, the popularity of the program 2000 just everybody agrees that labor needs
I guess I was a bit too optimistic. It's not working, Mr. George. So sorry, we can't continue. The background noise, there's some sort of a hum that is drowning your voice out. So sorry about that. Maybe if you were to change the position and try again, it might just clear the line. But I had suspected that we might have this challenge to contend with because of the weather. Kayode, I hope your line is good.
Yeah, so Yuri, what I'm saying in summary is that there is no logic that anybody can use to fault Labour's insistence on 250,000 naira for a living wage in the Nigeria of today. Government too, on its own part, may have some points. I'm not sure because I'm not part of that organization. When it comes to the technicalities of implication for inflation and all this stuff, government perhaps may have some facts. What Nigerians need to do now is insist on how to balance the two interests. What is not negotiable is that Nigerian workers must have living wage, because power belongs to the people, because the people make the government. However, even if that 250,000 will ultimately not going to be the living wage, there must be some permutations and calculations on the part of the government, maybe in terms of subsidy of certain items, especially food, or in terms of every other things that may make spending that 250,000 on the part of the labor not necessary anymore. But there is no denial that as the economy runs today, labor is 100%, and I'm saying that with emphasis, 100%, labor is correct on insisting on this 250,000 naira. That is basically what an average family needs to live in Nigeria today.
Yes, indeed. You're so right, Dr. Kayode Isuola. You're so right, and a lot of people will see it like that. But as we have heard, it's not what is considered a doable thing for a government to come across with 250,000 naira minimum wage, minimum living wage, especially as it's not as if you can take the lowest level of the salary chain now and say, okay, 250,000. It's going to affect every other level above it, I imagine. Otherwise, we'll have a situation where the minimum wage has caught some that are above them, and they are just going to stay like that. So that's not going to happen. So it really looks like one of those conundrum kind of a thing. There's no faulting the logic, as you have said. Kayode, there's absolutely no faulting the logic, because everybody goes to the market. And again, when you look at it from the point of view that you have, which is that a bag of rice, shall it be said that you cannot afford a bag of rice, not to talk about all the others that come on? So it seems so thoroughly logical. So I don't know really what to do. And when Labour says that it is waiting on the presidency to give it its feedback, I imagine that it's like, well, we're just waiting. I hope we don't have to go back. But they have given their word that until the presidency responds, no more strike. So I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
It's a matter of where we have and place our national priority. Let me give you a simple analogy. You can have a man who lives on 50,000 naira.
Kayode, could I come back to you? I beg your pardon. Professor Edmund. Professor Edmund has called in from Enugu. Good morning, Professor.
Yeah, good morning, Yuri.
Thank you for calling.
I will surcharge you for keeping me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't do that. Okay, I'm so sorry. They must have taken their time in getting to me. Please go ahead, Prof.
Yes, I've listened to what people are saying. As a matter of fact, Nigeria is in a quagmire between labor, government, or the tripartite people that have been talking to make sure that they come up with a reasonable amount of wage to be paid to workers. I probably use the word reasonable. Doesn't mean that labor demand is unreasonable. But within that reasonable position, we have to be reasonable. What do I mean by that? Even if you pay worker 1 million naira minimum wage, that is not an issue. It's not an issue. Let's not look at, because oftentimes we say the National Assembly members are doing this, are earning that. No, that is not how to negotiate. Don't try to compare, or you try to compare Nigeria with another country. You don't compare. Look at your own situation. Situate what you are demanding to your own situation. As a matter of fact, if I may ask to say, 250 is not ideal because of the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria today. And again, imagine that there are these hawks, wolves, shylocks that are waiting on the wings for government to come up with anything. Who are those Sherlocks? The traders. The traders. So by the time you increase this into 250,000, it will affect even that common man, that lowest worker you want to protect. And again, there must be a consequential adjustment. So I don't think Labour is looking at that angle, that consequential adjustment that definitely will affect all category of workers. So for me, this is not the ideal time to start demanding for that humongous amount of money. For me, between 80,000 and 100,000 is okay.
All right then.
Let's consider the economic situation we have in Nigeria. Or do we want to compound? Do we want to compound the already sorry situation we are in this country? So that is my own submission.
Thank you very much, Professor Edmund, for calling in from Enugu. Kade, go back to you. Okay, you've heard the professor's submission.
Yeah. Interestingly, the professor is of the opinion that some figure is okay. I'm also of the opinion that there is no way anybody can fault the logic of 250,000 naira as minimum wage in the Nigeria of today, when we are talking about what an average low-class person needs to survive. However, it does not work only by figure, and that is the other part of the issue that many people are not looking towards. The government on its own part needs to put certain things in place. Maybe substitute on transportation, on food, on health care, and maybe tuition. I mean, a good thing in that direction is the newly introduced student loan, which is supposed to cushion the effect of the inflation on the population. But until those things manifest, what obtains as we speak in Nigeria does not negate the logic of that 200,000 naira. So if government really wants to do what is expected, they should put on the table all these other variables that can be used to cushion the effect of inflation.
Yes.
And then Labour, on the whole part, will then empirically look at them as well as the practicability of them and use that to shift its own ground.
All right then.
There is something we call anomie. There's a theory around anomie.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a society in which standards are set for people to achieve, but you don't give them the resources to achieve those standards, they resort to corruption. And if we are a nation that is hell-bent on fighting corruption, people must have wages that are commensurate to their efforts in society, so that when they engage in corruption, you will have the legal and the moral right to ask the question, so why did you do this?
Okay, let me bring in George. George has called, beg your pardon, Kade. George has called back in from Ikeja. Good morning, George. Hello, I was hoping it would be better. Okay, go ahead.
All right. What I want to say is that therefore, it's the plan that is not well. It and said, if federal government is for example, the state of
you know, I'm sorry to say, it isn't better. Mr. George, it's identical with the previous call in terms of quality. There's a background hum that is horrendous. It is drowning you out completely. I'm so sorry about that. We've never had this problem with you. I wonder if you're calling from a different location or with a different phone, but it is appalling. We can't hear you at all. The hum and interference is drowning you out entirely. Yeah, Kayode, you were saying that we have to, which is, I think the Professor Edmund, who had called in, also hinted at that kind of a thing. But something has to be done, as I think the professor put it, so that that 100,000 that 250,000 might not be necessary if it had been taken up by other things. But being realistic now, I think the professor even said that, look, as far as he's concerned, not that it's enough, but somewhere between 80 and 100,000 might just be something that Labour would, have to look at seriously, even though Labour has said that it is not looking below 250,000. So we have this situation where we know the position of the parties. What we don't know is the dynamics dynamics of negotiation and how they will reach each other, because we're going to have to come out of this. We're going to not be in this logjam forever. So what is going to happen?
Yori, you know why we are in this quagmire? The federal government has allowed this matter to accumulate unnecessarily. In other climes, when you have a semblance of the National Economic Commission or planning or statistics, whatever structure you have, you don't wait for workers to go on strike before you review their wages based on prevailing economic circumstances. If indeed the purpose of governance is to take care of the yearnings and aspirations of the people, we did not need what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
What we should do is empower these structures that we have in Nigeria to ensure that every year you look at the inflation trend,
yes,
you look at the global trend,
and make
you
adjustments.
see what you review on the salaries of the workers that can make them afford basic accommodation, basic feeding, and identify all those areas that you need to subsidize.
Indeed.
That is how economies are run.
Exactly. Let me bring in Yakub in Dokwemu. Yakub has called in from Dokwemu. Good morning, Mr. Yakub.
Good morning, Shifari. I don't know, maybe my own is clear.
Your own is crystal clear. Only God knows what happened to Mr. George's phone this morning.
Mr. George is
in fact,
on the island.
We're having to reduce the volume of your own call a bit. It's actually clear and loud.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that I finally got in this morning.
Sure.
And then good morning to your guest, Dr. Isola.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Shifari, the truth must be seen here. Truly, the government cannot afford 250,000 naira of minimum wage. There's no doubt about it for now. Because the minimum wage we are talking about is just for the lowest cadre. So they increase that one.
The consequential adjustments.
It cuts across all the parastatals like that. So you can imagine what it's going to cost. But I will say that, even though the government cannot afford it, there are some certain, as Dr. Aisu said, there are some certain things government need to put in place. Number one, it is health. How are they going to manage the health of these workers? Because if they can be able to subsidize the health, because if they are ill and then they go to hospitals, there must be certain things that you took off so that they can be able to assess. And then let me give you another example here. Even they pay them that 250, Mr. Yori, it is not enough. I can tell you for free. Let me give you an example here. Somebody that is working here in Lagos, and probably the person is staying in Ogun State, probably is staying in Ifo. Let me use that as an example. And then you are coming all the way to Lagos State to go and work, and then you spend less than 8 hours in hold up. Why? Why? Because the road was so bad. Who's supposed to fix that road? Is it not the government? And then apart from that, if government even increases, there's something going on now. The landlords, Chief Jari, tell your people how. Let them do investigate on these things. Some landlords, especially here in Lagos and Ogun State, they started to increase their house. Some people even increase the house rent by 100%. All because they heard that labor is asking for 250. So even though that 250 cannot buy a bag of rice, so the labor should be able to negotiate some certain things. Apart from saying they ask for the money, especially the student loan. The student loan, the government does not even let Nigerian citizens know. How are they going to get about it? Does it start? How are they going to apply? What are they going to do? Those children, nobody tell us anything. Nobody gives them information concerning this thing because people are waiting for that student loan. They thought that, okay, if government can be able to say to do this, even though they pay them like 150,000 or 200,000 or 100,000 as case may be, if they have children in the higher institution, they know that that one has been settled. Not that they have 2-3 children in the school and then the tuition fees has already been increased. How are they going to cope? Even with the 250, they cannot send them to school. So
Yeah.
they can be able to pass that information. Okay, this thing has started now. Tell your children to apply. This is how they are going to go about it. So those are the things. Not only asking for money, labor should ask for some certain that they will make sure government do the needful. Thank you, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yakub, for calling in. And we do encourage Mr. George, he's one of our regulars, to please try again. Everybody else in your, everybody else that you called in with has been calling in and it's been working. Only God knows what happened to your lines or the whatever called that, the cell, I think, is it the cell unit they call it, in your area.